On this episode of Take This Down, I sit down with Dr. Rachael Capua, Vice President of External Operations and Dean of Fort Worth Tarleton State University campus. And we talk about how growing up and her love for education led her to a successful career in higher education. You're going to want to take this down. You're going to want to take this down. Well, Dr. Rachael Capua, thank you for agreeing to sit down and have this conversation with me. You know, I feel like I'm sitting with my sister having this conversation. Just looking forward to it.
It's a joy. It's a joy. Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be with you. Honored to be with you.
You know, if it's okay, I'm going to no longer call you Dr. Rachael Capua the rest of this conversation. I'm going to call you Rachel if that's okay.
Of course.
And I hope you notice I wore the purple for Tarleton State today.
I love it. I love seeing you in purple. It's a great blazer. Thank you for representing so well.
You know, I always joke with people, say, oh, you're wearing purple for TCU? I say, no, it's Tarleton State. As a Baylor guy, I can't be for TCU.
It's the power of purple. It's the power of purple. I love it. I love it.
Well, you know, let's just jump right into it. So who is Rachael Capua at her core?
Gosh, yeah, I love that question. You know, I think at the core, I believe actually wholeheartedly at the core that I believe in the power of persistence. I believe in the power of second chances. I believe in the power of education. And I think what's so special about what we do, and I think each of us, you know, respectfully in our own industries, in our own sectors, we just want to help and steward well. And so I just, with everything in me, I love this work because it really, really sets apart, and it can be transformational, really, for families. And so education is the core of what I stand for and what I hope to do on a day-to-day basis to further that, to empower others and young people, but of all walks. And I do. It gets me up every morning. It makes my heart beat faster. And it's really a gift to be part.
You know, you mentioned something about like second chances.
Sure.
You know, I was doing my research and preparation. Okay. You know, you can never know a friend too well.
Sure. I love it. I'm interested in what you're going to say is what I
think I read something about a journey of overcoming. Speak a little bit about the journey of overcoming. What does that mean to you?
Right. Gosh. Well, I am a second generation community college graduate. And why I love to underscore that maybe and punctuate it is my mom went to a 2-year institution and transferred to a four-year university in North Texas here, actually. My dad was a student veteran. It was it was timing. Timing was everything when it came to their own educational journeys. And I think what's so powerful about that, especially for students and individuals who choose that path, I just really believe in the power of second chances. You may not have been or are exactly where you thought you would be. And at the same time, everything in every step is ordered. And I think from an educational lens, that's what's been really moving for me personally to see my own parents. They were the one generation that were able to pursue a higher education, and to accomplish that was everything for our generation, for our family. And so it's about opportunity. It's about access. And that for me is what the second chances is really all about.
So you talk about not knowing where you want to be. So you're telling me when you were growing up, you didn't know that you wanted to be Dr. Rachael Capua leading Tarleton State Fort Worth campus? That wasn't your dream?
I wanted to be a teacher. I mean, and so maybe it was kind of a part of it, right? But I wanted to be a teacher so much so that in middle school, I was laughing about this with my sweet mom a few weeks ago, and I literally would have permission from the parents for the after school program I was in to teach their children. And I was maybe 2 grades older than them, but I would send notes home. I would help them with their homework. And I really feel emboldened by this space of just opportunity and of learning. And so Maybe so. I even got an overhead projector. For those that are hearing this, if you remember what an overhead projector even was, that was literally one of my one of my gifts for Christmas one year. It was all about it. And I think at the end of the day, it was just the right people at the right time entered my own story in my own life. And it just ended up happening. And gosh, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful.
Was there someone that you looked up to or, something that inspired you that sparked that desire for education or even just wanting to be a teacher at such a young age?
My mom is a business owner. She has been for 35 years now. And I think just seeing her work ethic for so many years and watching a business grow from our dining room table to what it is today, I have continued to take so much of that with me, but for both of my parents and especially my mother in that sense. And so she comes from a family of 8. They were born and raised in South Texas, and they just were so much. My grandfather has a 4th grade education. So when you think about the power of opportunity in that one generation, in this case, my mom and dad, who literally went after and have been so successful in their work, but went after the hard things, even when it was really tough, seeing that and instilling that has been, and I think the story is the same for many, right? It's whether it's your own family or others that you've watched or whatever you choose to be, an attorney or an entrepreneur, it's because something lights you up inside. And most of the time it's because an individual or others gives you that inspiration. So for me, that was my mom for sure.
I love to hear that. And the reason why, because it speaks to me, because I think about my mom and her work ethic and the multiple jobs that she worked to provide for me and my siblings and what inspired me, but also the work ethic that I got. It came from my mom.
That's right.
And so you never know, who's watching you, who's going to pick up those habits that they see.
And it's hard to teach.
Right.
Work ethic is hard to teach. I feel like it has to be really within you in a way. And it's nurtured for sure. It's built. It's a muscle that you have to flex and continue, to build upon. But it is absolutely something that makes, I think, someone pretty special.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit.
Sure.
And so you ultimately have a career in higher education. There's this opportunity that becomes available at Tarleton State University. And obviously you got the position. Were you prepared or ready for that?
So quick overview, which may or may not be helpful, but to context set, for the last 3 jobs, and I think the same maybe be for you or for others listening to this, I really had I used to 10 years ago think I want to do this. I want to be X. and I knew education was always the path, but I didn't know exactly what. It kind of finds you when it's the right thing. And I felt that way with this role. With the role before, I was with T3, the Tarrant 2 and 3 partnership prior. And that was such a gift to see that work, transformational work in education. And I was employee number 2. And so we saw it from the ground up. When now our mayor, Maddie, took the role that she's in, I wanted to plant with T3. And I stayed for a while before starting at Tarleton State. And it really was the mission. I missed and wanted to be back in the higher ed on that side of the table, if you will. And our president, Dr. Hurley, is a first generation college graduate. He was the one generation in his family to really make that decision and make that mark. And I met him and the team, and it was about access. It was about opportunity. It was about affordability. And I just knew it was a great jump. And I don't know if I was ready. I think about it and I think, gosh, being a first-time vice president in higher ed, anywhere you are is a leap. And it's one that you have to do with humility. It's one that you have to do with confidence and knowing that you have to feel forward as much as it's the job. It's the job. It's our responsibility in these roles to serve our students well and to serve, in this case, our faculty and staff well. And so I get to do that. And it's been a treat for sure.
I think you're going to remember this, but the reason why it's always kind of cool and special to see the work that you're doing at Tarleton State is I remember me, you, and Jordan were abroad when when you were going through the process.
That's right. That's right.
And so seeing it come to fruition and seeing all the work that you're doing, it's like, hey, I knew before everyone else.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, y'all have been such sweet friends. Yeah. I just, and I think it's you have to surround yourself by people that encourage you to do big, bold things. And I believe that friends like you and Jordan, my husband, I mean, Carlo really is that. What I think is just such a gift in marriage is when you have a spouse, and I see this in you both too, you have someone who genuinely wants you to be the best version of yourselves. And that is huge because it's your cheerleader when you need a cheerleader, but it's also hey, this is what I would think about in a tough time when it's appropriate, of course. This is what I would do differently. And he's a good sounding board for that. And he just said, if it scares you, go for it. If this is what you feel like is the right next step, go for it. I didn't have the experience on paper. I mean, I didn't. I don't know if I was ready, quote unquote, for it. But it was there, and the opportunity was there. And I was grateful that our president really gave me the opportunity to jump big and deep in it. And gosh, 3 years. It's been 3 years, and it's been a journey, one that I'm really grateful for.
So when you start at Tarleton State, you have a couple thousand students.
Yeah.
Now I see there's plans to have over 10,000 students.
That's right.
Once the master plan is completed. Will you talk a little bit about the master plan for Tarleton State Fort Worth?
Sure. So I have material in front of you, right? So educator.
Does anyone
educator,
see?
look
Just
at
make
this.
sure y'all see she did bring material and a nice little
rooted and rising. No, late April, we announced and really published our updated Tarleton State Fort Worth master plan. And let's maybe chronologically, let's look at some dates, right? Because I don't know if that is to level set for some. It may be helpful. 2014 is the first date. That year was the year that the Walton Development Group donated 80 acres of land to the A&M system. So Tarleton State is a proud founding member of the A&M system, and they donated that land to us. Donated. And that's it for any institution of higher education, but for any organization, that's significant. Right. And so we opened our first building on Chisholm Trail at that site back in 2019. And I joined the team and after the pandemic, essentially. So we're trying to come back as every university and college was. We opened our second building in 2024, so not too long ago. And we announced this master plan. So the 80-acre vision is comprehensive. And you're right. The projections are that we, by 2035, will hit about 10,000 students. By 2045, we could hit up to about 16,000 is the projection. And I think what makes that so special for a city like Fort Worth, which we know now is the 10th largest city in the country, we need public, affordable, quality education options. And we do, again, feel a responsibility to offer that. So it's a big part of what that vision has become. And this is a reflection of that, but it's going to take and will continue to take partners, friends, alumni in our area and workforce to ensure that we're doing what we said we would do well.
Is there a particular student profile that you all target with the Tarleton State Fort Worth campus, or do you view it in the kind of like a traditional lens? That's
a great question. Historically, I would say we had only been a transfer completion campus, meaning you would go to Tarrant County College or you would go to another university and then transfer to Tarleton State Fort Worth as your junior, senior year, upper level. Graduate programs has also been a key focus area for us. It wasn't until 2 years ago that we started welcoming first year and second year students. So I think the profile's changing. I think with what this plan represents, it's a full 4-year comprehensive university experience. So we put in our plan, the housing is in our future, on-campus housing, dining is in our future, and it will naturally change who we serve. And our core will always be that, again, second chances, those adult learners coming back. Maybe they want to upskill or reskill, or like my own father, those that we serve, many veterans and military connected families are so significant to our mission and our work. So It's evolved, and I think will continue to evolve, and I think we'll always have that transfer. I believe that we'll always have that transfer heavy and an adult learner centric mission, because it's just who we are. So
right.
A little bit of all of the above.
No, that makes sense.
Sure.
That makes sense. One thing you talked about is workforce development.
Right.
A lot of people, not the audience that listen to take this down, but potentially, but a lot of people don't necessarily understand the nexus between workforce development and higher education. Can you talk a little bit about why it's important for having one higher education institution, but that collaboration with workforce development and how it impacts us as a city and a region?
Sure. Gosh. I often think of institutions of higher ed at every level as incubation for innovation, for creativity, for meeting industry where they are. So when we think about an economic mobility, when we think about upskilling, when we think about industries moving or businesses, headquarters moving to our city, it has to be matched with options as it relates to education. And so when we think about what academic programs to offer, we want to ensure that we're, for our region and for our city and our county in particular, we want to offer programs that match those needs or those gaps. And so health sciences, for instance, is a key component to what we're all focusing on, because there's just such a sore shortage with health sciences work. Nursing, you hear often, while coupled with things like cybersecurity, AI, machine learning, computer science, all these things. So as we enter into that space of who will we be as a campus and what are we doing as a campus or a university for that matter, as a system for the A&M system, it all has to be grounded in what the workforce needs are. Because for a thriving city means a thriving workforce, and that means thriving families, and educational opportunities are key to that for sure.
It's often said that rising tides raise all ships.
Yeah.
And so, the reason why I say that is, you have UTA West that's coming in the West.
Sure.
You have Texas Wesleyan that's doing, good things on the East side, and obviously TCU and then we have you all, Tarleton State on the South side. Yeah. Is there ever a sense of competition in higher ed, or does every institution kind of, have their own identity, if you will?
Yeah, it's a question I think all of us are getting a lot. And I really do sincerely mean, I think you'll hear from all of us, we have to be in this work together to support a region so robust as what we have. And the numbers, you know what our trajectory is. We need again, quality options. Where I'm excited about Tarleton State and what we're doing is, and right now, if you think about just who we are and who we serve, we at this moment, 2026, we're the only 4-year public university in the Fort Worth city limits that are offering all 4 years and graduate level coursework. That's significant.
That is.
It's significant, and we have to continue leaning into that space and sharing the good news and offering, hey, if students and families, if you want to stay in Fort Worth and want that 4-year comprehensive options as it relates to programs, this is for you, and we can do so affordably and with access at the heart. And so at its core. And so we're on. I think healthy competition is always good. I think it makes us better, and I believe that. You'll hear so many of us say that. And I think what we're doing as a Texas A&M system for Fort Worth, with Texas A&M Fort Worth opening in the fall of 2026, which will be a system project, a system campus, we are all at the table making sure that we're actively and proactively doing what we think is best, we hope is best for the city.
That's great. That's good.
Yeah.
You all sit in a very thriving District 6 in the city of Fort Worth, where I think there's a lot of new development coming up there. I often hear Councilwoman Dr. Hall talk about the need for residents in District 6 to eat and play within the district. That's right.
She says that
And
often.
so as a part of you all's master plan and the growing and, 10,000 students in 10 years and then potentially more, does Tarleton State, kind of play a hand or assist in that economic development of attracting, those types of things that may be of interest to students? Or do y'all just kind of say, we're here to support how we see fit?
We have to be at that table. And Dr. Hall's done a great job in her time ensuring that Tarleton State is at the table. So she has a saying, and I believe it. It's, we are District 6 University. Crowley's so great. The Crowley ISD has been a huge partner for dual credit. Next year, we'll have 350 of their high school students coming to campus every day to take college level credit. So they are Tarleton State Texans still in high school taking credit. So for Crowley, we're Crowley's university. And Dr. Hall will say often, we are, the university is a anchor for District 6, and we need to be, we want to be. And it goes back to that very thing. It's how do we ensure that we're serving our part of the city and the region, those neighboring cities and counties to the best of our ability. And it's unique. It's a unique structure as it relates to having a university and what we will have where we are in Southwest Fort Worth and Tarrant County. And I think just so many good things to come.
It's just hard for me to sit here and conceptualize because, obviously I went to Baylor for undergrad. And when you talk about 10 to 14,000 people, I'm like,
it's the size.
That was the size of Baylor at that time. Right. And, it's crazy to think like in a good way, but also how big Fort Worth is.
It is.
To where we can support 4 major institutions here.
It has been, and it's same. TCU undergrad, when I was there, we were that size, 10 to 12,000. And when I was a student there, that's our world in which we live in. And it wasn't until after graduation, which I think all of us probably experienced, we're like, oh, there's more, there's all these things. And that's what's so great about this. You'll hear Bobby Audier with A&M Law say often, and we're talking about this as an A&M system at large. When we think about Fort Worth or cities like Boston, right, he'll bring up a lot.
Yep.
I mean, there are 40 plus institutions of higher ed in a city that is not as large, as big as Fort Worth is. And you can become an establishment and an epicenter, an ecosystem for innovation when you have research at the center of that. When you have, which Tarleton State and A&M, the system are grounding and centering in and on. When you have exceptional, students who will live, work, and play, likely, right, in the region and in Tarrant County after they graduate, it's all about creating that cycle of support. And education is so often the center of that, which is really, really neat to be part of, especially right now.
Gotcha. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, what can either myself or just the community or the business community as a whole, what can we do to support the work that you're doing at Tarleton State?
Ty, and I mean this genuinely, you're doing it. I think opportunities like this where we can just share what's happening has been huge. So, always welcome an opportunity, small or big, to sit at tables and I think representation really matters. When you have education at the table and you talk about workforce and you talk about what's going on or what the vision is. I mean, this plan, so we're really marking this as we're rooted in tradition because Tarleton State has actually been in Fort Worth since 1978, nearly 50 years.
Started with 8 students according to my research.
That is right. Thank you for doing that research. It's very, 8 students, you're right, with medical laboratory science. That program will be at A&M Fort Worth in the fall. We're moving that program to A&M Fort Worth, which we'll offer there. And it's about sharing about those opportunities, about sharing the good news, and about using platforms like this to say, this is what's happening and how can we be part? My main hope and our main hope is that we serve well. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Stewardship, especially in education, is grounded in service and supporting students. And if we get up every single day and make that our mission, anytime we can support students that we serve and putting them in internships, externships, apprenticeships, when we can expose them, that's what T3 is about, exposing students in K-12 to opportunities for career and workforce readiness. It's all about exposure. But I think there's something, I feel like the moon and the stars are aligning in a sense because we are in a place where I think for our county and our region, there's so many exceptional people all wanting to do really good work in this space. And let's just meet the moment. I think we're meeting the moment already, but continuing to do that together takes intention, and opportunities like this allow us to do just that.
That's good. I like that. I like especially to serve well. I think that's a bar, as the kids say, right?
Yes, there we go. I try to stay hip. I'm not very cool, but it's, they keep me grounded. These kids,
100%.
students. Yeah.
Let's fast forward to 60 years from now.
Gosh, 60 years. Okay.
We're going to be at your retirement ceremony and party.
Okay. Yours too, I guess, right? Because we're about
hopefully much sooner than that.
Okay, here we go.
How do you want to be remembered?
Wow. I would want to be remembered as someone who just wholeheartedly cares about people and progress, not perfection. Because I feel like that's one of I get up every day and I'm like, Rachael, doesn't got to be perfect. We say just it has to be good enough. It has to meet a level of excellence for myself and our team, we're building a team that believes in that. Perfection's not the purpose. It's true progress, and I really am. I'm not. I want to be genuinely known for that very thing. That there's a heartbeat to the work, and that heartbeat is students and transforming families and people in that, and is no small thing. And so that's it. That's really it. And I feel so grateful, going back to your question about being ready, or, I think being at a place and space I am in this career and this profession. It's just so I feel like I'm in a sandbox every day, and I get to listen and learn and dive deep and build castles sometimes, build plans, what this is, and some of it works and some of it doesn't work. And I feel grateful for leadership and our executive team that supports that work, and that's it. I don't just want to be. I want the things and the places and the missions to be remembered. It doesn't necessarily, and I mean that, it doesn't need to be about the person or even, us. It's really about what that lasting impact is over time.
I love that. Well, Dr. Rachael Capua, thank you for taking the time and sitting down and having this conversation with me. It's easy talking to you because you're like a sister, your family to me. But thank you for letting my viewers learn a little bit more, not only about you, but also about Tarleton State University.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And again, always great with the purple. Just good to see you.
What a great conversation. It's always good to sit down and talk to Dr. Rachael Capua, but this time was special to talk about the master plan for the Tarleton State Fort Worth campus and what it means for our community and for the region. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like and subscribe. You never know who's going to be the next guest on Take This Down.